Good evening. Most reports tonight are focusing on the prospect of diplomatic talks in Pakistan to avert a wider war between the United States and Iran. But that focus misses the real story. A war has already started, not with missiles, but silently, beneath the surface of the Strait of Hormuz, and it's a conflict that has rewritten the rules of engagement. This is the world's energy jugular, the Strait of Hormuz. At just 21 miles wide, with an average depth that can shrink to as little as 50 meters, it is a shallow and claustrophobic passage, a natural trap for the massive steel vessels that pass through it. And it is precisely this narrow channel that has now become the world's most dangerous corridor. Iran has played its most ruthless card against the American naval presence. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has aggressively and recklessly mined this critical choke point. According to intelligence reports, more than 6,000 naval mines are waiting in Iran's arsenals. To grasp the scale of this threat, consider this. Not since the Second World War has such a massive potential danger been concentrated in any single narrow waterway on the planet. This figure is not just about raw numbers. It signals a strategic pivot. Unlike a missile arsenal, which is centrally controlled for deterrence, a minefield is a weapon of chaos. Deploying such a vast number suggests a willingness to cede direct control in favor of creating an unpredictable, self-sustaining threat zone, a departure from conventional state-on-state military posturing. Furthermore, these mines are believed to incorporate lethal Russian bottom mine technology and concepts from China's rocket-propelled EM-52. What is lurking in the Strait of Hormuz are not rusty barrels of explosives. They are smart underwater missiles equipped with their own decision-making systems, lying in wait for their targets. This massive stockpile is enough to seal the strait from end to end, over and over again. The truly terrifying element, however, is not the 6,000 mines in storage. The real nightmare is the insidious minority of those explosives, selected from this stockpile and already deployed into the water. Their number and location are unknown. The quantity of mines dropped into the warm waters of Hormuz could be as few as several dozen. But in this constricted strait, a single explosive is enough to paralyze the routes of thousands of ships. The most terrifying part is that Iran has reportedly lost track of some of the mines it laid itself. Records are incomplete, the currents are strong, and the mines are now drifting uncontrollably. In other words, rogue weapons, their locations unknown to anyone, are currently roaming this narrow corridor. These are not relics from a past war. Iran has invested heavily in mine technology since the tanker wars of the 1980s. The systems in question are the Maham-3 and Maham-7 naval mines, among the deadliest weapons of asymmetric warfare. The Maham-3 lies in ambush meters below the surface, tethered to the seabed. It carries a 300-kilogram payload of high-tech explosives. The Maham-7, by contrast, rests directly on the seafloor, specifically designed for these shallow waters. The most frightening feature of these systems is that they do not require physical contact. Their internal magnetic and acoustic sensors listen to every vibration in the sea. Like a hunter, they wait for the specific acoustic signature of a massive American destroyer's propellers. As the ship passes overhead, the change in the magnetic field puts the detonation risk on high alert. This is why the United States is now fighting a real war beneath the waters of the Strait of Hormuz, to clear this corridor of death. The U.S. has mobilized to neutralize Iran's final trump card. This underwater campaign is not happening everywhere at once. The U.S. Navy has concentrated all its clearing power on two specific, highly strategic, and extremely deadly locations. The first is the narrowest part of the strait, the transit corridor between Keshem and Larik Islands. This is the mandatory route for all maritime traffic, a choke point where massive tankers must slow down and execute sharp maneuvers, precisely where Iran is suspected to have laid its mines most densely. The second focal point is the southern traffic lane, closer to the coast of Oman. Washington's plan appears to be to open these two main arteries first, to restore the flow of global oil. However, Washington is now confronting the consequences of a major strategic miscalculation. Just 1 year ago, the Navy decommissioned 4 Avenger-class minesweepers based in Bahrain. Built with special wooden hulls to avoid triggering magnetic mines, these were the only ships in the fleet designed exclusively for this one purpose. But the U.S. military had pulled these ships from the Gulf, the very region they were needed most, and sent them to the Pacific. This decision reflects a broader post-Cold War strategic gamble by the Pentagon, prioritizing high-tech, peer competitor threats over so-called low-end asymmetric warfare. The withdrawal of these specialized, less glamorous assets from the Gulf in favor of the Pacific now appears to have been a critical failure of threat assessment, leaving a dangerous capability gap. Now, a frantic race is underway, Washington is suffering from the absence of these ships. The Trump administration has ordered Hormuz to be made safe again. Two Avenger-class ships, the USS Chief and the USS Pioneer, are currently crossing two oceans, sailing from the port of Sasebo, Japan, in a relentless race against time to reach the strait. But the U.S. Navy is not waiting. The Independence-class littoral combat ships already in the region, designed for coastal warfare, have been urgently activated. Modern vessels like the USS Tulsa and USS Canberra, equipped with mine countermeasures modules, are now standing guard at the most dangerous points of the strait. Until reinforcements arrive, the strait remains an active minefield under a thin veil of ceasefire. The picture is clear. Traditional warfare is on hold because Iran has turned Hormuz into a lethal danger zone. In addition to minesweepers, Washington is deploying AI-supported autonomous assets beneath the waves. Meters below the surface, a robotic war is now underway. Torpedo-shaped drones, the Mk-18 Mod 2 Kingfish and the Knifefish, are mapping the seabed inch by inch with high-resolution sonar. These autonomous systems are designed to detect Maham mines hidden in the sand. Their sensors are so sensitive they can instantly distinguish between a discarded car tire and a buried Maham 7 mine. This is how the autonomous sweep works. First, unmanned surface vessels deploy massive AQS-20 sonars for a wide area search. These vessels patrol for hours, towing a huge sonar sled, with no human vulnerability. When the system's artificial intelligence flags a suspicious object, single-use kamikaze robots called the Archerfish are deployed. These robots glide silently toward the target, trailing a thin fiber optic cable. A camera on the robot transmits a live feed of the deadly mine back to an operator miles away. The moment the operator confirms the target, they press a single button. The mini-robot detonates, destroying itself and the mine in a massive explosion. This entire cyber-robotic kill chain is managed from secure command centers on ships miles away, without a single American soldier entering the water. From the air, MH-60 Seahawk helicopters hunt for shadows in the water using ALMDS laser systems. This technology effectively takes an X-ray of the sea, firing thousands of laser beams per second to find those rogue mines that are drifting with the current. To do this, these helicopters must fly dangerously low, just meters above the sea, as pilots search for an invisible needle in a vast ocean. Dropping human divers into these waters would be a suicide mission. That is why the entire sweep is being conducted by unmanned systems and the cold calculations of artificial intelligence. As we know, multi-billion-dollar American aircraft carriers and destroyers are prime targets for the IRGC. Carriers like the USS Abraham Lincoln and the USS George H.W. Bush, which is en route, have very little room to maneuver in the narrow strait, making their paths predictable. A single mine detonating against a carrier's hull could paralyze America's entire operational capacity in the region. Unable to take that risk, the U.S. is keeping its carriers outside the strait. But Arleigh Burke-class destroyers are being forced to enter that corridor of death. The USS Frank E. Peterson Jr. and the USS Michael Murphy are navigating the razor-thin safe paths cleared by the drones. These ships are not mine hunters. Their powerful radars can stop missiles from the sky, but they are blind and vulnerable from below. History confirms this danger. Since the Second World War, the weapon that has inflicted the most damage on U.S. ships has not been missiles, but mines. The fate of the USS Samuel B. Roberts in 1988 remains one of the Navy's greatest traumas. For this reason, the U.S. is keeping its most valuable assets away from the minefields. The massive gas bubble from an underwater mine explosion can fold a ship's steel keel in half like paper. Navy engineers call this the bubble jet effect. Detonating beneath the ship, the mine creates a vacuum bubble that expands at incredible speed. The ship is first lifted by the water's thrust. Seconds later, as the bubble collapses, the thousands of tons of steel hull, with nothing beneath it, cannot support its own weight and snaps in two, sending a billion-dollar high-tech destroyer to the bottom of the ocean with one old-fashioned mine is just that simple. American destroyer crews are serving with the knowledge that the water beneath them is a potential inferno. And the threat is not just underwater. On the surface, Iran's Revolutionary Guard fast attack craft are poised to sabotage the clearing operation. Tehran is waging a total psychological and asymmetric war against Washington's high technology. Boghammer-class speedboats swarm the U.S. minesweeping fleets like angry bees. They do not open fire or engage directly. Instead, these small, incredibly fast boats, armed with rocket launchers, deliberately cross the paths of the unmanned U.S. vessels. They perform dangerous maneuvers, attempting to jam the signals of autonomous systems, spoof the sonars, and slow down the American operation. Furthermore, the latest intelligence reports claim that Iran's Ghadir-class stealth submarines remain active in these shallow waters. This presents a second major risk. Even if the U.S. Navy clears a corridor with drones all day, there is no guarantee that those stealth submarines have not secretly remined it under the cover of darkness. This insidious tactic turns a finite clearing mission into a deadly, never-ending game of cat and mouse. To protect the autonomous ships, A-10 Warthogs and Apache helicopters have formed a lethal circle in the sky. The A-10 circle like vultures, their legendary 30mm GAU-8 cannons ready. The moment an Iranian speedboat crosses an invisible red line, that cannon can spew dozens of rounds per second, turning the boat to splinters. Apache helicopters lie in ambush just above the waves, their thermal cameras and Hellfire missiles weaving a ring of fire around the slow, vulnerable clearing drones, a barrier no Iranian attack boat could breach. This tension is forcing Washington to take radical new measures. The Navy is now writing a new mine warfare doctrine to avoid this helplessness in the future. After years of neglect, billions of dollars are being budgeted for massive drone swarm projects. Systems that can detect and dispose of mines simultaneously and entirely unmanned are now a top priority. But in this current crisis, Washington cannot clear this choke point alone. The danger has already struck the global economy. Captains of massive oil tankers are now refusing to enter Hormuz. Ship insurance premiums have skyrocketed to astronomical levels. Without firing a single missile, Iran is turning a psychological blockade into a real one with this silent, underwater threat. And at this point, all eyes have turned to Europe. Every hour Hormuz remains restricted, the lifeblood of European industry is cut. Energy prices are soaring, supply chains are collapsing. This economic panic has finally spurred Europe to act. This European intervention is driven by more than just alliance solidarity. It's a stark admission of the continent's profound energy vulnerability and its continued reliance on the U.S. security umbrella in the Persian Gulf. For years, European leaders have sought strategic autonomy, but this crisis forces them to commit military assets to a U.S.-led operation to secure their own economic lifelines. France, Germany, the United Kingdom, Belgium, and the Netherlands have announced the formation of a major naval coalition. Europe will join this underwater war with advanced minesweepers and elite diver teams. Germany has declared it is ready to fast-track legal procedures to dispatch its ships. The UK and France plan to integrate their advanced sonar systems into the US. Operation: the Royal Navy's deep experience in autonomous mine hunting will be critical support for the US. In these narrow passages, the British Sandown and Hunt-class mine hunters are known as the quietest ships in the world. Their hulls are made of fiberglass and special plastic, making them invisible to magnetic mines. Gliding like ghosts, they can penetrate the most dangerous kill zones. The Royal Navy's remote-controlled disposal robots, named Seafox, also possess a massive data network capable of scanning the seabed with millimeter precision. Forged in the harsh conditions of the Persian Gulf, the Royal Navy is coming to be America's sharpest eyes in this blind spot. Navies from the Netherlands and Belgium are deploying their elite diving units, the world's most specialized in mine neutralization. Even the Arab nations of the Gulf are providing logistics bases and opening their ports to the coalition. Right now, more than 50 countries are lining up to see this waterway reopened. But the hard reality is this: laying a naval mine takes hours. Clearing one can take weeks or even months. Even this massive combined global military force does not change that relentless fact. So even if a lasting peace were declared tomorrow, the war beneath the waters of the Strait of Hormuz is set to continue for a long, long time. Because every single mine still unaccounted for is a grenade with its pin pulled, aimed directly at the heart of global trade. And in the darkness of the ocean, they continue their silent wait.